You ready? How you doing? This is Brad from Brad's Transmissions. In this part 2 of this rebuild series, we're going to continue on the 350 and go through on how to go through the valve body and cut the bushings away and replace all the bushings in the transmission. This is a very critical step in this rebuild to make sure you clean the valve body right and get all the bushings properly synced into or set into your transmission so you don't have any problems down the road. So I hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget that like and subscribe. It helps this video out and it'll help other people's just the same way it's helping you. All right, let's get on with it. Okay, next we'll be doing the valve body. I'll be taking this completely apart. After I get the valves out of it, what I'll do is I'll come over and I'll clean it here in my solvent tank. I'll blow it off and I'll stick it in my valve body tray. I'll see if I can find a link to where you can get these, and I'll post it in the description below so you can get one if you want one. But that's what we need to do next is we'll get this apart. We'll go through each valve. I'll kind of explain what they are and we'll get it all cleaned up. All right, first thing I'm going to do is get the 2-3 accumulator out. Get you a pair of channel locks. If I can get my hands to work. And we'll compress this down. There's still quite a bit of fluid in it. And we'll get a little E-clip out like that. Okay, got a little E-clip out. Take the accumulator out. There's a spring underneath, and that's been replaced. That's a high performance spring. And there is a Teflon seal right here, which we'll remove, just like that. Okay, I'll clean these up and get them in my valve body tray. Okay, with the accumulator clean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the detent. This is your kick down. I'm going to take that out. You got your bolt, little retainer, and your valve spring. This, you can see, is all, you can keep this all together. There's a little snap ring there. Just make sure the spring's not broken in here at all. You can keep this together, but I'll get this all cleaned up and get it in my valve body tray. Okay, we'll turn it around here. Now what we're going to do is take out this valve here. This is the pressure regulator valve, controls the transmission pressure. You can get a magnet. Sometimes you can get these out if you push in on this little aluminum sleeve here. Sometimes you can get it to come out. Sometimes it's a little tougher. Push it in and out, see if it falls out. It's not falling out. Well, kind of push behind it. Now it's coming up. Just can't get my fingers to work today. Got a pair of pliers and we'll pull that out. Got your pin and your pressure regulator valve assembly. Sleeve, valve, your spring, and then your main pressure regulator valve. So you got your pressure regulator valve. The little one here, this is your reversed valve, reverse boost valve. Sometimes these are together. This is one solid piece, but on this one, it's two separate pieces, but this is for your reverse. I'll get these cleaned up. Okay, the next valve is the 1-2 shift valve. Let's see if we can get this one to come out. No. Well, these don't want to come out. It's a little weird. They usually just pop right out, but of course they won't when you film, because nothing wants to work when you're actually trying to get something. There you go. Pull the pin up. We'll take the, see if we can get that to come out. Wow, that doesn't want to come out. Might have. Oh yeah, we got a burr. Oh wow, look at that. That is actually bent a little bit. This might take a little bit to get out. Sometimes you can just lightly pry this out. What we don't want to do is cause damage to the sleeve. These usually just pull right out extremely easy. So this is just a little odd that it's this hard to get out. As you can see the scrape mark here and here. Yeah, we'll clean up the bore so it's easier to get back in. A little bit more. Use the valve to push it out. Wow. I don't think I've had one this hard in a long time to get out of here. What you don't want to do is grab it with a pair of pliers, because you'll just cause more damage. It's coming. Yep, there it is. Almost lost. Little spring. It went flying. There's that little spring there. And then this is the 1-2. This is the control valve that goes in that. We'll clean all this up, and I'll clean the bore out so it doesn't do this. It'll be easier to put back in, you'll see. And there's that. And then the actual 1-2 shift valve. Awesome. Okay, we'll get this cleaned up. Okay, the next one is the 2-3 valve, shift valve. Let's see if we can get this out. And this is not going to come out either. A lot of the times you can just tap it with a magnet and you can pull that pin right out. But for some reason, this doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Came out that way. And we'll see if we can get this out. Carefully pull that out. This is your 2-3 control valve and spring. Don't lose these springs. And then this is the actual 2-3 shift valve. I dropped my spring. Well, I'll get my spring and I'll get all these cleaned up. Okay, next is your manual low control valve. This one right here. I don't think any of these are going to come out for me nice and easy. See if I can get gravity to pull it out. Just kind of like push the button up. There it is. Retainer. Your springs, you can see it's a shift kit spring. If you're doing a stock one, your spring's probably going to look a little different than this one. And then your manual valve, manual low control valve. If you are doing a shift kit in your valve body, follow the instructions completely. Do not stray from them. Do exactly what you're told to do. Okay, we'll get these cleaned up. And last but not least is the detent regulator valve. You notice this does not have a plug on the end of it. It's just the retainer and the spring. So we'll get the little pin out, spring, and then the detent regulator valve. Notice this has got a little bit of, it's got a spring holder right here. Sets on the end of the valve. Don't lose these. We'll make sure you put it on the right way. All right, we'll get this cleaned up. We'll get the valve body all cleaned up and put on it, and then we'll start getting it back together. Now, before I get this cleaned up, remember, it was hard to get this aluminum sleeve out, because what it does is it gets a little bit of a buildup here from the pin and rubs it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little concave file and I'm going to file this just right where the pin goes through, which is going to help that sleeve not to catch, and it'll go in nice and easy. You can feel the burr on it. It's coming off. All right. That'll do it. We'll get the valve body cleaned up, going back together. As you can see, I've got everything cleaned and dried. Got my valve body here. I got all my valves in my tray. Remember, we had the one that was a little bit sticky, that was hard to get out. You can see I cleaned it up. You can still see there's still a little bit of scrape marks right here. But if we go to put it on the one that I filed, you can see it slides it in and out nice and easy now. That's what it should do. Okay, so we'll start getting this back together. We're going to start right back where we ended off, and we'll put our detent regulator valve, detent regulator valve in. A lot of the times I'll put, especially with the aluminum ones, aluminum valve bodies, I'll squirt ATF in it. But with this cast iron one, it's a little easier. You don't need to. I'm going to put all these in dry, but then I'm going to sit and squirt the whole top of this so they soak in ATF. We'll get this valve right in like so. We have our spring and a little retainer. Put this in. What I'll do is I'll take a little screwdriver and carefully press this down so I can get the top part of the pin in. Then I'll push the other side of the spring down, hopefully. Keep on getting that in the way. And get that pushed in. All right, got that valve in, and you can take a screwdriver and make sure the valve moves freely. Okay, next we'll put the manual low valve in. Get that pushed in. We got our spring. Remember, if you're not doing a shift kit, you can have a different style spring than this. This is a tougher spring from a shift kit they put in there. Got your little retainer. Put that in and install our pin. Next is our 2-3 shift valve. We'll set it up. We'll get this in. These hardly ever were sticky. You can hear that just dropped right in nice and easy. So you don't have to really worry about cleaning the bores out. What you want to do though is the valves in these aluminum ones, you want to check to see if make sure there's no wear marks right in here where they'll wear, and it'll be very, very shiny from where the valve has worn out the aluminum. 99% of the time, these old 350s didn't ever wear any of this stuff out. So you really don't need to worry on a lot of the 350s, but you still would want to check to make sure it doesn't do that. Okay, I got my little spring, and we'll put our 3-2 control valve in our aluminum housing. And we'll put that in. If you notice, the pin goes on this side, so you'll know which way this goes. So we'll get our valve in there, and we'll carefully push it in. And the valve came out of the sleeve. It did. That happens quite a bit, where the valve will actually come out. We'll get this out. As you put it in, what will happen is this valve will actually come out and get cocked, so you can't push it all the way in. You can put a little lube in there to hold the valve in, or what I'll do is I'll just put just a little ATF on this so it goes in a little bit smoother, and that should take care of it. Wow. And of course it didn't. Get this. Wow, every time I turn it around, it moves. Guess we'll need a little stuff on this to keep the spring inside of it. Get the spring inside of it like that. That was a little bit better. And install the pin. And we'll stroke the valve. You wonder I didn't stroke this valve. It's because that got that one spring that won't allow this valve to move. Next, we'll do the 1-2 shift valve and spring. Get this up. Drop this in. Right down to the bottom. Take our spring. small side goes in towards that spring or that valve there. And then we have our aluminum sleeve here with the valve and the spring. We're going to put a little bit of lube on the end of this one, or assembly lube on the end of this one to hold this spring in, so we won't have the same problem we did on the last one. And we'll set that in there. Again, make sure you check the inside of your bore, make sure it's not worn out. And again, that's where the pin is, so that's where the little hole goes. And we'll carefully slide this in and get our little pin. And install that, just like so. Awesome. Next is a pressure regulator valve. Get our pressure regulator valve. And we'll drop this one in. Nice and easy. Remember, the small end goes in towards the valve, larger end goes towards the aluminum sleeve. Put that there. Now this doesn't have a spring in it between the two of them, so we'll put this one in. Like I said, sometimes this is one valve. It's not two separate valves. Sometimes this is one valve. Depends on the tranny in the ear. We'll get this put in. While I'm putting this in, sometimes these things like to wobble out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little assembly lube on this to help keep this inside of this sleeve while I put it together. And we'll line up the hole on this side with this. And this one, this spring's pretty stout. Ow. Man. All right. Got that put in. That's a stiff spring for this shift kit. All right. With all these valves done, we'll roll it around. We'll get our detent valve in. Don't want to lose our spring. Remember, this has that little snap ring we didn't take out. It has a spring. You want to make sure this is not broken. This valve actually sets, this spring actually sets through the, or the valve sets through the spring. We'll get this put down in it. Like that. Then we have our little retainer. This will go on in, push the valve all the way in. All the way down, and we'll get our bolt it down, grab a wrench, get a wrench, and we'll just snugly tighten that down. Doesn't have to be hard. Don't put a gun on this and try to smack it down with a gun, because all you'll do is either break the bolt or strip the hole out. Last but not least, we have our Q3 accumulator piston. This is going to take a little bit. What I want to do is I want to put a little lube. Well, I need a little bit different lube on this. I've gotten into my kit and I've gotten the seal ring. If you notice, we took a Teflon off. These are like carbon fiber metal. Not really sure what they're made out of. Never did any research on them. We'll put that on. You want to make sure it's free when it's closed. If you notice, this has little locks to hold it together. So you want to get this down, Carefully lock it together like that. We'll put our spring in and we'll carefully start. Don't want to force this, you want to make sure it goes nice and easy. You can see I've got it in. We get a pair of channel locks. Got a pair of channel locks here. Push that down. Got our snap ring. And install our snap ring. And let it back out. If you take it off, and this has got a plastic, some of them come with a plastic accumulator housing, you need to replace it with an aluminum one. They have them in stock most places, so they're pretty inexpensive. But yeah, if it's plastic, you need to replace it because they like to break out the center of it, and this will come out. So, and that's not what you need when you're building your tranny. Okay, there's your valve body. It's all ready to go. Like I said, I'm going to take my ATF and I'm going to squirt all the valves so they soak with some ATF in it. We're all ready there. Everything's nice and free. We'll set this to the side and we'll start putting some bushings in. When you're doing a rebuild, I would suggest, especially in a 350 and a lot of the hydraulic ones, you can get a bushing kit. It'll have all the bushings that you need to replace, case bushings, tail housing bushings, everything you need to do that. I don't like the bushing kit that comes for the pump in this. I'll show you. We'll get it cut open. The bushing, the pump bushing is Babbitt. And these things like flake apart and come apart very, very easy. I don't like Babbitt bushings. Sonic's has a really, really nice one here. It's a little bit more money, but it's Teflon coated. And this will not wear out. This is smoother. It is so much better on your torque converter. So I would suggest putting a Teflon coated pump bushing in it. Sonic's does sell them. I'll try to put a link in below, but everything else that you need for your transmission, for your bushings, they're all in here. So we'll start cutting these out. I'll show you how to cut them out, and we'll show you how to get them all installed into your transmission. Now, when you're placing your bushings, what you want to do is you want to have a nice bushing cutter. This is a Snap-on GA1 bushing cutter. They're not very expensive. You can use other ones. These are a couple of different other styles of bushing cutters that I use. But the ones that are actually made for it work very, very well. Get it on there. And cuts it right out. I'll bring everything else over and we'll cut everything else out. Next, we got our sun gear. We've got two of them, one on the bottom, one on the top. You can actually reach all the way through, and I can knock out the one on the bottom. Come out really easy. We'll turn it around. We can actually do it the opposite direction now. Got those two bushings out. We've got our forward ring gear for the forward planet. There's a bushing right in here. We'll get that knocked out. The rear planet, there is a bushing on the inside of that. Again, we'll get this one knocked out. This bushing and the sun gear bushings are the same bushing. So you'll have 3 of them in your kit. Got that knocked out. You have your direct drawing. This only goes out one way. It comes out this direction. There's a lip here that won't allow the bushing to go that direction. We'll need to turn it over and we'll knock it out this way. Wow. This is a little bit thicker bushing. Go back and forth. That was better. Got that out. Last but not least, besides our case bushing and our tail housing bushing, we got our pump bushings, stator bushings. We've got one wide one here, and then we've got two of them. One here, and then there's one below it we got to cut out. These can be a little bit tougher this time, but just be careful, and you can get them right out. What I do is I hold the cutter with my hand like this, and so I can get it and get it cut out. These are a little bit tougher to do because they are so small, and it's really hard to hold on to the stator. It's just not working very well. You can see I'm cutting up the bushing pretty bad, trying to get it out. Might need to sharpen my bit. Okay, I got my bit sharpened. Try this again. There we go. A little bit more. You see it's turned it to the side. I'm going to get it out with that. Let me get a screwdriver. Get a screwdriver and just pull it right out. Turn it over. We'll get the two bottom ones off. Well, starting to move. That one, there's one more below it. See, that one's way down there. Sometimes you can get them out with the screwdriver. It's coming. There we go. And I'll take a rag and wipe all these out. Get all the dirt and stuff out of them. And we'll get ready to put our new bushings in. Okay, now that I've got all the bushings knocked out or cut out, I still have another one. There's one in the case and there's one here in the tail housing. I'm going to press this out. It's a little easier. You don't have to cut it. I'll show you how to do that, but we'll get all these bushings pushed in and start getting the tranny put back together. Okay, what I use to put my bushings in is an arbor press. I have bushing drivers I have on my wall, different sizes for each bushing. I'll show you how I put all of these in. You can use a hammer to put them in. I'd rather not. This pushes them in nice and smooth, so you don't do any damage to the bushing, because that's the last thing you want to do is do damage to the bushing. So we'll start getting the bushings pushed in, and I'll show you how that goes. Okay, first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the bushing out of the tail housing. I've got the driver that fits it. Now you can take this, you can hit it with a hammer. I just think it's better to use an arbor press. A little easier. Cut the bushing out that way. I'll take a rag. I'll take a rag and wipe it out. We'll get the new bushing. What we want to do is push this down flat. I'll get a close-up of this so you can see how it goes down. Take that like that. With my driver right on top, what I'll do is make it like that and push it all the way down. And I will take the smaller one again. What I'm going to do is countersink it just a hair. You see, it's countersunk just a hair. Now after I've got this pushed in, I might as well take the seal. We'll put that on top. I'm going to take a little bit bigger driver and we will press that seal in at the same time. Like so. Now we've got that all done, we'll start with the rest of it. Okay, with the pump stator, we're going to put the front one in because there's 3 bushings. You got a wider one that goes up top, and then you got 2 smaller ones that go in the back. Remember, they go at different depths because we had to cut out the 2 at different depths. We'll put the front one in. We'll take this and push it down so it's flat. And we'll do the same thing like we did the tail housing. We'll countersink this just a little bit. So it's in position. Now if you look, there's a small chamfer right here at the end, and we push that bushing right down so it lines up with the bottom of that. So that's why we want to do that. Turn it over. Now we've got 2 bushings that go in this side. We'll put one and push it down flat, and I'll show you a tool. I'm going to have to remove my plate here so I can go down a little further. This is a driver especially made for 350 pump. What it does is it puts the bushings down at the proper depth. First one, and then we'll turn it around and put the second one at the proper depth. So we'll take this down, and then this, press it all the way down. And as you see, put that bushing down at the proper depth. We'll go and put the upper one in. Do the same thing. Make sure we put it on the short side, and then we'll push this down. Make sure that's the proper depth. See how that puts in right there? This is good, and what we're going to do is get my input shaft. I'll grab my input shaft. What we want to do is make sure it goes on nice and easy and spins. Nice and tight, no wobble to it. So all good there. Okay, next we're going to do the sun gear and the rear planet. If you remember right, I told you these bushings are the same. Now when you're pushing these in on the sun gear, this way is okay because it has the stability of this gear all the way down here on the plate. But when you turn it over and you're going to be doing this side, you don't want to cause this to bend. If you're pushing on this, you might deform your sun shell, and that's something you don't want. So what I do is I have this little seal driver to set the gear on. Now I'm pushing on the metal gear on the inside, and it's not putting any stress on our shell. So let's get this, and we'll put this in, get a close-up. Okay, we got our bushing here, right inside the sun gear. We'll put our driver right on top of that. We'll push it down. What I need to do is countersink it just a little bit. Now I don't have a driver that'll actually fit down the hole, so I got to countersink it with this. Just a little bit. Okay. As you can see, I've got that nice and countersinked in there. We'll flip it over and do the other side. Now with it turned over, again we'll get our bushing and our driver. And push it down like that. Sorry. Turn our driver over and we'll countersink that just a hair. And if you look right there, we've got it countersunk just a little bit. Next we'll do the planetary system. Okay, with the rear planet, the bushing goes right in this area. Turn it over, you can see it goes right in this area. We'll put this on there and get it pushed in. Do the same thing. Push this down. And countersink it just a hair. The best thing about using a press to do this is you know you can get your bushings in straight. Because if you don't get them in straight, it's going to wear them crooked. Next I want to do the direct drum, but if you notice, this is where the band rides. What I need to do is I need to clean this up before I press the bushing in, so I don't cause any damage to the bushing when I'm cleaning it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my lathe and I'm going to put some sandpaper on here and get it all cleaned up. So let's go do that real quick. Okay, I have a really inexpensive lathe here. I got this from Harbor Freight years ago. It's too bad they quit selling these. because they're pretty handy to have. We'll get my drum tightened in here nice and tight. See, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up so the band can grab on here. With it being so shiny, it will slide on this drum and won't grip properly. So what we want to do is take this back to pretty much an original sheen on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start polishing this. This is 80 grit, and then I'm going to use a 180 after that. We'll get this going. Okay, we'll do the 180. Want to make sure you keep your fingers away from everything. You should get hurt with these. And we'll get it all cleaned up like that. Now, you've got that off. It's got little crisscross cuts in it from sanding it, which will grab the band better, and our drum's resurfaced. Okay, now that we've got the drum all polished up and cleaned up, we'll get our bushing in. If you remember right, when I was cutting this out, this has a little lip. So what we're going to do is we're going to push the bushing down until it stops on that lip. We'll get that. Get the bushing in there. And get that pressed down. We'll get a different driver that fits the bushing perfect. And then push it down until it stopped. Now you can see the bushing's put right where it should be. We'll take our stator where this rides and runs nice right on that. Awesome. Okay, we'll put that off to the side. We'll do our forward planetary ring gear. This is a nice thin bushing here. And we'll push this down in. If you notice, I'm using bigger drivers for some of these bushings before I even start putting a smaller one in it. The reason I do that is because these bushings are actually a flat piece that they've actually put together. And if you have a driver in it and it pushes it out, what you're going to do is it's going to pop it apart and you're going to ruin your bushing. So that's why I use a bigger one to push it in flat and then the right one to push it down the right height. But this one just sits down level. And we'll make sure the planetary fits in here and spins around nice. Then we've got the one for the pump. At 12. No, 14. See, as you see how that driver sits right on there. If I push it down too hard and it doesn't have support on this outside, what it'll do is actually break the joint here, and it'll ruin the bushing. So if you put a bigger one on there and push it down flat, there's less risk of damaging your bushing. Just like that. Then I'll take the one that fits it, and then I'll countersink it. Take it down and countersink it so it's not riding. You don't want this bushing up here next to the gears because it will rub on the gears. You want it down just below that. And again, while we're here, Okay, when we put our seal in, what I want to do, the little red here is sealant, but what I'd like to do is put a little extra Loctite on it. If I can get it to come out. Put a little bit on this, and I'll smooth it around. This will just help the seal stay in. I'll grab another driver and push that down nice and flat. Awesome. Now the only ones I got left is the case bushing, and I'll put that in just before we start doing the case. And like I said, the output bushing for the shaft, sometimes you have to have, there's a brass one in here. I would not use the brass one, cut it out, and you get this little plastic one here. It won't damage anything, and it's much easier. It's safer for your transmission. It won't cause damage to your input drum.